Hi, welcome to Acquisition, Merger, Consolidation, Migrating to Siemens Teamcenter. In this presentation, we're going to start with a little PROSTEP overview, then go over some migration strategy, talk about the PROSTEP migration toolkit for OPENPDM, and then where to start. PROSTEP was started out of a consortium in Europe in the 1980s that was trying to make data exchange between suppliers and OEMs more efficient. So that started really with the STEP standards, but then led to other types of innovations in order to streamline interoperability between different vendors and then also between different organizations. The PROSTEP companies that are partial owners are all at the bottom. That includes mostly Tier 1 and OEMs in automotive space in Europe, but then also the PROSTEP IVIP Association, which is our sister company that's involved in neutral standards for the industry. PROSTEP is fairly unique in that we have partnered with all the major players within the PLM and CAD sphere, including Siemens, Dassault Systems, PTC, and others, as well as analysis with ANSYS and Altair, 3D PDF with our Adobe partners, and as well as TechSoft, and then also various ERP, MRP, ALM, and other types of domains. PROSTEP has a long-standing partnership with Siemens. We've been a PLM Foundation partner with them for many years, supporting a lot of our products. Most of this is within the Teamcenter domain with our Teamcenter connector, then also NX, TCIC, IPEM, and SWIM CAD controllers to interoperate with that data, as well as Teamcenter Enterprise connector and interoperability for TC for SIM as well. Moving on, we're going to discuss a little bit about migration strategy. Aligning migration with the rest of your PLM plan is important in order to understand what the strategy is and make sure that you're going to accomplish the goals of consolidation that you need for your mergers and acquisitions. So as part of the PLM plan, normally if you're talking about a new introduction, you're going to go through some type of as-is analysis. But before the system is even selected, you should start thinking about migration strategy and determining what type of migration is going to fit your business. And we're going to get into that a little bit in the future. But with that, we're going to, with system selection, focus on project planning for migrations. And then during the implementation of it, maybe do some preparations and scripts and other types of migration definitions. Do the migration rehearsals or migration dry runs during a go-live preparation, and then finally either execute the migration or start the migration in order to start moving data in a coexistence format with a go-live type scenario. But really, what the fundamental takeaway for this is to start this definition up front. So don't leave migration until you've already done your system selection and implementation, and you already know what you're going to do. You need to start that early. When thinking about migration strategies, I think it's best to start really with the requirements and separating those into really two categories. What's required for decommissioning that legacy system that you want to consolidate, and then what's required to go forward and either introducing or to work within the new PLM system in Teamcenter. So that might actually separate your PLM to what the data is that requires to be extracted, what could be archived because it's needed to be retained, but maybe not needed to go forward, and then what's needed to go forward that needs to be put into the new system. So questions like version or iteration requirements, right? So are you going to need all the history in every iteration or every version? Or maybe just all the released copies and the latest in work, things like that. And then how to handle other types of data. So a lot of data is captured within workflows and processes for signatures, things like that. And some of that's required to be captured, but it doesn't map to the new system because it just operates differently. And you can get creative about these things, creating maybe reports and documents in order to map that data to the new system so that you can still access it and really bring that forward. And then in your new system, what's required to be operational. So if you do have maybe 20 programs of CAD data that's needed, and the other ones you haven't actually touched in a while, maybe that's right. If you have a long-term archiving strategy, then you maybe can use that strategy and say, push some of this data so you don't need to maintain it in the PLM in the future. If you haven't used it for a while, right? But then also, alternatively, if you don't have a long-term archiving strategy, maybe you can, adopt one and start thinking about what that might mean and what that looks like and how you need to have it interact with your organization. Long-term archiving is an important part of a migration strategy, so you don't want to be supporting single seats of CAD that have data in a format that's really unmaintainable and then constantly updating that data. So if you get it into a format, like maybe a step 242 or something like that, then you can archive that data and it should be machine readable by a lot of different CAD systems for a long time. You need to ensure that it supports the functions and features your CAD data needs. And maybe that might mean multiple different representations or different formats. But PROSTEP IVIP, the nonprofit standards body, has been working on this type of archiving and developing strategies for this for a long time for both aerospace and automotive. And really this comes down to not managing that CAD, not needing to update it for the next 50 years into the new format, because you really kind of get it out of that and put it into a format that's going to be readable in the long run because it's based on an open standard. There are primarily two migration methods, and these kind of get maybe shuffle around a little bit and they can interchange a little bit, but two methods of migration are ETL, being extract, transform, and load data, and then also doing it transactionally. So taking one piece of data and moving it all the way from the source system to Teamcenter. So in the ETL, you do three processes effectively. The first is you pull the data out. That means getting data out of the database or through the APIs of the old system. And then loading that into a database in the middle, a source staging database, right? And that's going to stay there. Now, when it's loaded out, then you can do what's the transform part of this. And this means a couple of things. This might mean mapping of the metadata in order to move it into a format that's acceptable to Teamcenter. It could also mean conversion of CAD data, or quality checks, or other types of analysis of that data. And then it could also mean a little bit of data cleanup, right? So depending on the condition of your data, within that transform, you can do some data cleanup. But this should be well scoped and known ahead of time. You don't want to go into a project not knowing what needs to be changed in order to be loaded. Because that can really push, what the dates in the project and the effort and the transformation. And then finally, loading. So being able to take that data and put it into Teamcenter through the APIs or another loading mechanism. So the second part is transactional. And with a transactional, what you're trying to accomplish is moving small sets of data within a single process. Now, that's not going to be as performant and efficient, right? But it does allow you to do different types of use cases of keeping systems together so that you can migrate just single sets of data and push it over. Maybe that might be one program's worth of data or one division's worth of data. But kind of stage it so it's not an all-in-one type of migration, but can be little migrations that can handle delta updates between the systems fairly easily. And what you need to do is really define this insert update strategy in order to push data there to make sure it's well aligned with the migration. So the primary reason you would use one method over another is if your business was able to move that way into Teamcenter just over a weekend or a week or whatever that might take. So if you're capable of doing that and your business can flip over that way, then an ETL strategy is probably recommended. It's generally cheaper, easier to execute than the incremental migration. But if you're not able to do that and you have multiple divisions that have lots of data and there's too much risk overall in a migration that might just be over a weekend, then this incremental type migration is probably recommended, where you might be able to take a program or a division or something of that nature, move it over, iron out the kinks within Teamcenter for that program, and then move on to the next one, with some knowledge and some best practices established. So a little advice on project planning. For one-time migrations, typically we start with a strategy and requirements workshops and develop then a set of requirements that include, really largely the mapping, right? What it looks like in the source system, what it needs to be in the target system, and then also the processes that are going to be defined in order to make that happen. So then we go ahead and implement some of those processes and get the scripts ready for migration, and then do what's called migration rehearsals. So typically we start with a limited data rehearsal, maybe 10% of the total data within the source system, and push that in order to test basic functionality, get an idea of performance, and understanding of mappings and ensuring that fields fit and things like that. And then we follow that up with full data migration rehearsals. So it means at least one, depending on the data cleanliness, we might do 3, and really execute the whole data migration. And what this is going to do is check to ensure that all the error conditions are taken into account, so that we can correct all these inconsistencies within the data and make sure that the final migration is going to go cleanly. And then finally execute the production migration and move all the users from the former system into Teamcenter. The other method is an incremental migration. In order to really do that well, we recommend an agile approach and do 2 to 4 week sprints, right? So that might start with requirements overall, but refining it down to what actions need to be accomplished for each sprint, testing out those use cases, executing the user acceptance for that type of integration and incremental functionality, and then executing that using the same team, right? So this is an important part. Sometimes it's thought that you can build the tool with one team and execute it with another. And generally, I would not recommend that because the ones that understand the script and processes are the ones that develop it. And the same ones are going to be able to adjust things on the rehearsal to make sure that it's well aligned and be really the best type of implementers that you need in order to actually execute the migration. Now we're going to move on and talk about PROSTEP's OPENPDM Migration Toolkit. So PROSTEP has 3 core products that all integrate well with Teamcenter. And so the one we're going to be talking about today is OPENPDM. That's on the right-hand side. That has a variety of different connectors in order to migrate data. But it also has integration capabilities for coexistence, federation capabilities, different processes for STEP and CAD integration, and can track KPIs, which are important for things like migration in order to understand performance. So we're going to jump into that a little bit more, but before then, we also have 2 other products: our OpenDXM Global X, which is a secure data transport that integrates into your PLM and is really tailored towards those use cases, but also easy to use with Dropbox-like functionality and email integration. And then also PDF Generator 3D, which is a generator that can create 3D PDFs, but also create HTML5 and take CAD data and be able to publish it and archive it to other domains that might not have a CAD seat. So really kind of pushing that model-based enterprise. So we at PROSTEP have the ability to expand Teamcenter and really consolidate data using our OPENPDM product. And this product is a different set of connectors to other systems, but really allowing bidirectional interchange of data. And that could be used with different types of use cases. One being integration, the exchange data between systems, and that could be for a coexistence style migration where you might need to feed back data into the legacy system or put it in the Teamcenter. Another one being just ETL style migration. We've got staging databases and KPIs and reports that are really tooled specifically for that kind of migration. And then also federation and collaboration, being able to share data or provide links and real-time access into systems. So within Teamcenter, we've got a variety of different connectors. Our OPENPDM Teamcenter connector at the top left, and really interfaces through the SOA APIs, just like a modern client would. So what we're doing is authenticating against Teamcenter, which has the access controls and other types of compatibility. This Teamcenter connector runs multi-session, and so we can create as many sessions as you can handle to really bulk load data efficiently and figure out what that equilibrium might be in order to get a real high performance migration. The other connectors that we have are our CAD controllers. So for NX data, we're going to need to load data through UG-Clone, which is an API specific for NX integration to Teamcenter. And then also for CAD data, other CAD data, we support CAD controllers for Teamcenter integration for CATIA, Creo integration with IPEM, and also SolidWorks integration with the SWIM integration to Teamcenter. So we have a wide variety of different source connectors that we could leverage for this as well, including at the bottom different PLM vendors from Dassault Systems and PTC and Autodesk or Ares or others. And then also on the top left, CAD connectors. And these are really focused on being able to import data from a directory structure. So, trying to analyze the data and understand what the internal relationships of that data might be, and then turning around and allowing you in order to organize that data in a staging database in order to migrate it. But then also ALM, ERP, and other data formats if you need to exchange data or archive data into those specific formats. So OpenPDM is sold through different flavors, right? And they're focused on the use cases themselves. So OpenPDM Integrate and Connect are focused really on the integration. It could be used with a bidirectional synchronization kind of use case, but trying to bridge two systems together so that you can exchange data between them or more. Really, a focus is on a multi-system integration. OpenPDM Collaborate and cCenter are built to try and allow corporate borders to be kind of brought down and allow for things like joint ventures and strong collaboration with partners. And then OpenPDM Migrate is tailored towards migration. So that's really what we're going to focus on today and kind of bring together some examples around that. So OpenPDM Migrate really draws on the power of the OpenPDM platform, but then adds different tools that are specific to a migration. And so those tools are things like the source and target staging databases that you might need in order to pull the data down, have the source understood, be able to transform it and then put it into a target, and then finally import it into Teamcenter. We have analysis tools, so understanding the different data sets, being able to report on what those data sets are, being able to look in the CAD data, understand that type of CAD data, and really offer a complete migration solution with a wide variety of connectors for different source systems, and good interoperability with Teamcenter in order to load that data there. And so building on the OPENPDM integration and using that as a foundation in order to bridge these different vendor systems. OPENPDM Migrate works by using the connectors for the source system and then implementing what that migration logic might be in the middle. So that includes things like the mapping or any reporting that you might need, or interrogation of different CAD data sets, things like that. And then also doing the data cleanup if needed between the different systems and the source and target staging database. And then finally importing with the Teamcenter connectors. There's a lot of OpenPDM customers out there, and quite a few of these are good Teamcenter migrations as well. And finally, where to start and what are the next steps? So typically when we're doing an engagement, we start with a migration questionnaire. So this is really kind of doing a discovery, a little bit about your Teamcenter system, about your source systems, types of different data, what applications you use there, the quantity of the data. That stuff helps scope out what the level of effort is going to be for that. And then also, what modules you use, what type of users you have in the system, and the complexity of the overall data. With that in hand, typically we'll follow up with a discovery workshop, and that's where we're trying to iron out some of those details. So reviewing what was in the questionnaire and, taking a look at some of the sample data, looking and investigating the systems, as well as, starting to talk about mapping and what are the needs of the migration. And then finally, putting together that plan. So with a workshop done, we'll sometimes generate a workshop document, and then get a plan together for the migration, and put together infrastructure and understand what that mapping all is, and start the process of developing and scripting what that migration might be. And remember that PROSTEP is here to help. So we've been through this a lot of different times on many different projects and seen it across a lot of different types of enterprises and domains. And with all that shared experience, we can bring a little bit of insight to this and really guide you through what's needed. And with our OpenPDM product, it's been around for about 20 years, help you with your migration. Thank you. I'm Brian Schouten, again from PROSTEP Inc. Thank you for attending, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Feel free to reach out to me or to PROSTEP. We'd be glad to hear from you.